Hey, Vinny, Melkus Outdoors. Today we're doing a little bit of a controversy. We're going to talk about the Wright Patman event for the TNPFL. I don't know, now it's been a couple weeks. I kind of been sitting on this. I mean, everybody's probably heard about it, but I've been super busy. And, but it brings up some interesting topics, so we're going to come at it a couple different ways. If you haven't heard, there's a gentleman that won the event by weight and then subsequently was relinquished that $100,000 title because he didn't have a fishing license. He apparently, the story goes, is he didn't complete the checkout online to purchase it on the website or whatnot. And he went through polygraph and passed it. Then subsequently, they were checking the licenses and just doing their due diligence afterwards. And I guess he didn't have it. Now, there's a number of different things we can go about this. Some of them are a little bit down in the rabbit hole. Some of them aren't. One, having been in the MPFL, and then we kind of parted ways a little bit on good grounds. It's just like I couldn't. It's just too much for me with a daughter at the moment to do a second season. Maybe in the future go back. But I've been in those meetings, the pre-tournament meetings, and how Brad and them talk to the guys. It is on the individual to make sure that he personally is legal and does the right things on and off the water representing the MPFL. So in that regard, I do not hold the MPFL responsible for this. In fact, they were doing afterwards checking the license to make sure everything was golden before they give the awards, which, yeah, that's fine. Where was it going on? Anyway, the MPFL, like a lot of people, I've seen some comments are kind of blaming them. Why don't they check all the license in the beginning? Well, it goes back to personal responsibility when they vet these anglers to come onto the tour. It's not like just like, well, you got whatever $50,000, hey, you can come on. They actually look for certain qualities, whether it be character, moral standing, and whatnot. I remember my pseudo interview. It was or I'd send a package and then talking to Brad over the phone, and it was, a lot of it had to do with how you carry yourself and your integrity. So, and there's been many instances that you probably haven't heard of where anglers themselves have turned themselves in, or anglers have turned themselves in certain violations on that tour, or at least when I was fishing it. And it was kind of a breath of fresh air. It was you had the sense that everybody was in it together and that they wanted to win it the right way. They wanted to do the right things. I had very little issues when I was fishing that, like people coming in on you, just little things like that, or knowingly violating rules. So the league itself is of higher standing. Now, this gentleman here, that's weird that you wouldn't complete your checkout, because I mean, every individual is different. When I've done the online thing, that's one of the variables you can't control. I go through the online ticket process. I make sure that I have a screenshotted copy on my phone. When it's the online version, you can't get a paper screenshotted copy on my phone, or somehow the link. I've questioned it a time or two myself on there, and just had a proof that I've actually bought it. And it was one of the things that in my mind I was always worried about. I just hate dealing with government types. I hate getting hassled on the water. I hate all the stipulations, regulations. I've forfeited tournament practice days where I didn't even throw a lure because I got whatever, they had a 5-day pass or something. So I just, and it's not bad. That's regardless, But we can go down a different rabbit hole, which is a lot of people are talking about polygraph tests now. And this has come up in the past when you come to cheating, and it's good to understand that the polygraph, coming from the world that I came from prior to fishing and whatnot, is understand a polygraph test is not the end-all be-all. And in fact, it's an interrogating tool. It's not a truth tester by any means. I know a lot of guys that have failed polygraphs, and I know that are telling the truth, and a number of individuals that are lying their asses off, and they pass the polygraph test. And some of it has to do with psychology, some of it has to do with, you just didn't quite know. But it is an interesting interrogating tool that can be used to find inconsistencies in stories and maybe get a little evidence that somebody is lying or being truthful. But it's not the end-all be-all, and this is one of those cases where it proves to be, where the guy passes it and he didn't have everything there. That's why you double check, and that's why they're not allowed really in court to a greater extent. What was the other thing? There were some other things that was going to go down that I guess from the angler perspective, you need to understand that you control the variables that you can control. This happens to be one of those, is the legality. And the fishing license is an easy one. Now, I understand, like in an instance, you might have a tail light. I remember getting checked for tail lights back in the day. If you had a tail light out, that was a big deal. You had to go fix it before you could launch the boat on some of the tournaments. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous, but there were certain organizations look at it differently, whether the anglers are compliant in their eyes before they even fish their tournament, or it's on the individual. But certain instances I can understand where there is a little bit of lapse there, things you don't know. Oh, the other thing. So we went on the polygraph. This is a different deal where I was like, well, you know, what's interesting, if the MPFL requires you to have a fishing license, or any tournament organization. Now, a lot of people might disagree with me on this one, but under Texas statute, fishing and hunting and all that jazz is a right. It's a constitutional right under, I guess, you know, it's statute there, I believe. Which brings up, like, I guess this is more politics or anything. Well, if something's a right, how can you license it to be able to do it? I can understand, like, harvesting fish, which in this case you're not harvesting. You're simply you're catching and weighing and releasing. So does that technically count as a harvest? I don't think so, but it's a good, interesting debate on the political spectrum of hunting and fishing, whether once these things are codified as rights, does the government have the authority to require a fishing or hunting license, unless you are, because under the I believe it's Texas statute, and a lot of them have to do with preserving the game or blah blah. So it would make sense if you had to have a license if you were harvesting an animal, whether that be hunting or fish in this state when you're harvesting animals. But if you're just fishing for the fun of it and the pleasure of it, and you're catching and releasing, do you need to have a fishing license? It'd be interesting to see how that pans out, because there's all these people that have pushed for these things to be codified as rights, but a right in itself is, you can't require people to purchase license and to exercise the right, because if they don't, then they can't. It's not a right then. It's a privilege instead. So that was an interesting perspective. These are things that just popped in my head when this all occurred. Two, you got to think about that, the angler's perspective as well. That's got to be one of the most biggest kick in the balls of all time, really. Or maybe not of all time, but in the fishing industry, getting kicked for 100K. You already put in whatever your entry fee for the year, which, you know, you're dropping 50K one way or the other touring on that tour. You have a chance to make that back, or at least break even in one tournament, and also have the trophy, also have the pride knowing that you did well, blah blah, and something like that just wipes it clean. Now, I don't know whether he's did it maliciously, or it was legitimately just he forgot. But it's a powerful lesson to learn either way. So I guess I was going to go down a lot of this stuff, but those are things I won't go too far down. I want to keep this short. One, takeaway: control the variables that you can't control in fishing, and a lot of that has to do with, like, make sure you have a fishing license. Make sure, line changing and all that other jazz that you can control. Battery charge, that's not legality, but these are just things you control, those variables, so that you have a greater extent to be successful with the variables you can't control. So that, two, thinking about the polygraph thing, because I always bring this up, especially because there's been a number of cheating cases, and the polygraph is not an end-all be-all. It's not a lie detector test. It is an interrogating mechanism or process. It is not the end-all be-all. In fact, I'm always skeptical whenever polygraph tests come out, because I've seen it too many times in the past, where there are truthful people that have failed and people that are untruthful that pass like it's nothing. And then thirdly, the rights issue. Is fishing a right? In certain states that it is it, does the government then have authority to make you or require you to have a fishing license if you're not harvesting animals? Interesting debates. I don't know. You can make your own comments, come up with your own deal. I know the reflex action for a lot of people is that especially in license things, like, they never really think about that. If something is a right, how do you require a license to do it? You shouldn't, because it is a right. It's inalienable. Supposedly, if it's right, you have a right to do this. And in a lot of the codes, if you read them, I believe a lot of it has, they do stipulate something about harvesting the animal. So that would leave, legally, I would imagine that you'd have to like have a license or a tag or whatever to harvest the animal. But to conduct the, or I guess to engage in that process of, especially fishing, when you can actually catch and release, where hunting, you're taking an animal, but you can be out there hunting and not have to have a license. And you think, well, yeah, you do that anyway, you scout. Well, there's places where I've seen people get hassled over, you have your firearm, you have this and that, and you're going out there and scouting animals and getting hassled by game wardens or whatever over not having a hunting license or whatever. Well, it's not, I'm not really hunting, I'm scouting, I guess. Or I guess it is hunting in a sense, but I'm not harvesting the animal. The fishing side of things is a little more cut and dry. It's a little less nuanced because catching and releasing it, I'm not harvesting the animal. My intent is to release this alive so that it can live another day, procreate, whatever. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. Peace.